Praises be unto our God. We come now for our lecture tonight. Our presenter tonight is a awesome young man. We are proud of him in Tallahassee. He's a member of the Elizabeth Poplar Springs Church. His pastor is Elder Cornell Leonard. He's a product or a member of the Old West Florida Primitive Baptist Association, and I'm proud that he is making many great marks in this world. We're proud of him. We're praying for him. He's a Morehouse graduate. He's continuing his education from mountain to mountain, and we're proud of him. Put your hands together as Minister Jordan Griffin comes to present unto us tonight.
Good evening, everyone. It is indeed an honor to stand before you in this way and in this platform and in this space. We indeed give honor to our illustrious president, Elder Dr. Kenneth A. Duke, and his cabinet, Elder Dr. Oscar L. Montgomery, our vice president. We give honor to all the tiers of leadership, our Women Congress, our Chosen Generation, and our Church School Congress as well. I also want to acknowledge my association, my moderator, Dr. Bernie. Thank you for the introduction. And the Old West Florida Primitive Baptist Association. Amen. Again, it's just an honor and a privilege to be with you all tonight as we wrestle with our theme, a call to action. Together we can rebuild hope. And so in wrestling with this, I've been tasked to take this from a justice lens, to take this from a lens of social justice, as we understand social justice to really be a part of our Christian faith. It is social justice that Jesus was a part of and held on to and was a part of his mission when he said, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me," when he has anointed me to preach the gospel. And so we're tonight going to take this lens into a social justice atmosphere as we push and encourage us to dig deep into what our congregations and what our churches and lay people and pastors can do, and to start building and breaking the ground as far as what we can do when issues of injustice happen and when we are called to action. That's very vital in the life of our church, specifically within recent times of contemporary movements. And so I would like to begin by posing the question, where is the black church on matters of social justice? Where is the black church on matters of social justice? To bring it home, I would like to make this inquiry more concise by posing, what does our national body, what does our regional conventions, what does our tri-state and state conventions and district associations and local church have to say in light of social justice, in light of social ills that plague our society? What do we have to say, if we have to say anything at all? I think that is a valid question, along with making it personal. What do you do? How are you concerned with social justice within your sphere, within your life, within your community, within your family, and within your church? And so I would like to frame this lecture around a similar theme, which derives from a conference I attended a few years back. And I would like to center this theme around holy rage and holy hope. Holy rage and holy hope. And so allow me to be the first to say that I am not the first to pose these series of questions. that unfortunately horrid circumstances around violence against black and brown bodies by the indecent and deplorable behavior of those who embrace and embody supremacy as an ethic to live by has caused some to be in search of just strategies and just solutions for social transformation. They are looking for a way to handle issues when issues of racial injustice and gender injustice arise in our lives. And so in an effort to identify an entity that would aid in a fight for social justice, many gravitated towards the black church as it has historically been the epicenter for black freedom struggle. And so the black church, which was known as the hush harbor in its infancy due to the fact that enslaved Africans had to gather in secret to practice their religious beliefs, would not be able to contain the social movements that were brewing in their camp meeting. And so the old gospel classic by Joe Ligon and the Mighty Clouds of Joy, there's gonna be a meeting tonight, old-fashioned meeting tonight, meeting on the old campground. There's gonna be a meeting tonight, old-fashioned meeting tonight, meeting on the old campground. How many of y'all heard that? You've heard that song before. There's going to be a meeting. And what I've discovered in listening to this song and reflecting on this song is that there was, yes, indeed, a campground meeting on the old campground. And I'm sure that there were moments of rejoicing and moments of praise and moments of shouting as they sought mental respite and relief from the physical bondage they were experiencing. Yet they did not just come for a good time, as they still realized the complexity of their positionality. The complexity of their positionality. They understood that they understood that while they were in praise and while they were in worship and while they could rejoice, they also realized their position was still enslaved. They realized that their position was still enslaved. And so real and raw emotions traveled with them to the camp meeting. And all who gathered lived in a constant state of trauma due to systems and structures that were intentionally created to never honor their humanity. And so if you thought the camp meeting was simply just a Holy Ghost good time of shouting and dancing, maybe we should lean in just a little bit into the fact that there existed a myriad of emotions that took place, of what their hearts had felt, what their eyes had seen from the plantation, what their ears heard. There was a myriad of thoughts and feelings going through their minds and going through their bodies. And our ancestors experienced circumstances that made their blood boil in rage. Now, rage. These camp meetings served as planning sessions for revolt, for rebellion, and for revolution. They did not just serve as a place of spiritual connection and spiritual respite and spiritual rejuvenation, but it also was a planning meeting. It was a strategy meeting of how we are going to look out and how we are going to manage and how we are going to strategize against the oppression that we are experiencing. And so when I see a government that is attempting to roll back on and block every piece of progressive legislation that has been in existence in these yet to be United States, my blood boils in rage. To watch a Supreme Court overturn affirmative action, to also watch a Supreme Court overturn a 50-year precedent of women's rights, to experience states like Florida defund diversity, equity, and inclusion programs from state colleges and universities, to experience the desensitized and money-hungry legislature like that in Tennessee do nothing about gun control after various mass shootings in this country, to watch the displacement of many black and brown communities due to the affordable housing crisis, which is driven by many big developers taking over and gentrifying historic communities, to experience state governments adopting book banning initiatives to keep our children from reading books that carry the truth about the ugliness of the U.S. history, and to also look out and to experience and see and watch denominations like the Southern Baptist Convention, who has historically not been pro-black in many of their stances, but doubled down on their sexist and patriarchal and misogynistic theology against women in ministry. And so the list can go on and on and on and on, and my blood boils, and the question still remains, what does the church have to say about matters of social justice? Where do we stand? What are we going to do? And so Martin Luther King once stated, our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. That we don't have a choice as a church to not say anything. That it is our responsibility as a church, as a convention, as a body of believers to speak about these things and to do something about these things. And one can only ask where the black church is concerning matters of social justice when there is absence or silence. And because I believe that the black church is not absent and is very much still a living and breathing organism, maybe we have been too quiet, too silent about the injustices plaguing our own people. Maybe our congregations are shrinking or have shrunk because we have been too silent in addressing the systems of oppression that harm and dehumanize folks in our congregations. Maybe our relevance as a church has dwindled because we have been too silent about the violence that is impacting our communities. Maybe our congregations seem disengaged in ministry because we are not engaging social justice as a top priority when we're thinking about the mission of the church. And so this is a part of holy rage, a holy rage. So I want to ponder upon a time where our churches, the last time our churches had something to say about injustice, about racial injustice, about gender injustice. When was the last time we were not arguing over a business meeting or arguing over church conference, but we were really enraged, not about those things, but about what's going on right in our communities? When was the last time we were enraged about those things and set aside time to deal with those issues? And so before you come after me, I do not want you to fall under the assumption that by rage I am insinuating or condoning violence or harm. The rage I am referring to tonight is not that which is defined by the standards of society, but it is a rage that is holy, and it is a rage that is authentic to the person of Jesus. Jesus, holy rage. Holy rage is what Jesus exemplified when flipping tables in the temple. That was holy rage. Holy rage is what Jesus displayed when watching religious leaders prioritize rituals and traditions over human needs and necessities. That's holy rage. Holy rage is what Jesus exhibited when his disciples dismissed the children when they were coming to him, when they told them to go away from the Lord. This is holy rage. This was not a reckless anger, but a form of righteous indignation. Righteous indignation. What do you mean? Righteous indignation, meaning that meaning we are angry because we have seen or experienced something that is in misalignment with our values. That there is a reason behind a reason behind our anger, a reason behind our rage. That our rage becomes justified because it is pointed towards the holy and making us align back with the divine, aligning back with the justice of God. And so rage can become holy when it is rooted and pointed toward divine love and a passion for justice and social transformation. That rage can also be holy when it calls us to act and not be complicit in our actions. So in order for our church, our convention, and all of us to center social justice in our own practices and utilize a holy rage, our theologies must shift to highlight and emphasize that Jesus is on the side of the disinherited and serves a God, and we serve a God of the oppressed. That Jesus is on the side of the disinherited and that we serve a God of the oppressed. It's important to understand. It's important to understand this, in that we can use, for example, a case study. When we think about the murder of Breonna Taylor at the hands of law enforcement, serves as a useful example to show how we can shift our preaching and shift our teaching in the fight for justice. I believe that we can do this. And like the death of Breonna Taylor, the crucifixion of Jesus was an act of state-sanctioned violence. No, she was not born of a virgin or nor claimed equivalence of the holy, but her life was indeed a sacred one that was victim of state-sanctioned violence. What do I mean about state-sanctioned violence? State-sanctioned violence is how harm is produced, how harm is carried out, how harm is sponsored, how harm is promoted by the state, by the empire, by the government, whether through federal institutions, whether through laws, or whether through policies. And so while we believe Jesus died for us, he was killed because of the actions of the Roman government. Breonna Taylor's body was broken, was killed specifically because of the historical and perpetual carelessness of the Louisville Metro Police Department. That being the systems and the structures of state-sanctioned violence. These are the systems and structures that perpetuate these things, that allow these things to happen. And so as I continue, I believe it is worth mentioning how intersectionality is which is a term coined by a scholar named Kimberly Crenshaw, plays a factor into Breonna Taylor's tragedy. Because what we must understand is that not only is this about race, but it is also about gender. That this is important to note because if you recall the time and period in which this took place, the attention around the unjust killing of Breonna Taylor was not made known until the lynching of George Floyd. And even though Taylor's death preceded Floyd's, and due to her gender, Breonna Taylor's murder was less publicized than the murder of George Floyd's. And even at one's death, society continues to lean into this idea of sexism and patriarchy. But here it is that Jesus and Breonna Taylor carry similar causes of death, which we refer to today, again, as state-sanctioned violence. However, in the narrative of the life of Jesus, social justice was actualized as divine justice by way of Jesus' resurrection from the dead. That social justice was actualized as divine justice by way of Jesus' resurrection from the dead. Freddie D. Haynes, pastor of the Friendship West Baptist Church in Dallas, also classmate of our national president, college classmate of our national president, puts it this way, that the resurrection of Jesus is a symbol of protest. It is a symbol of protest, meaning that the fact that Jesus was convicted of crimes he did not commit and was murdered as a result of state-sanctioned violence, his resurrection was a defiance, it was a protest, it was resistance that you cannot keep the oppressed down. It is protest. It is defiance. It is resistance. It was a protest that said, I will again rise. And that ought to be our testimony. And that ought to be our mode of how we operate in this world and how we operate as a black church who is seeking to do justice and divine justice, that we too are symbols of protest, that we will not continue to be harmed, that we will not continue to allow systems to oppress us, that we too are going to do something about it. We're going to say something about it. We're going to strategize about it. Maybe it's time for us to have a hush harbor of our own, to begin to strategize about how we can make the world a better place for black and brown people in the United States of America. And so, divine justice and Breonna Taylor. Does divine justice and is there not divine justice for Breonna Taylor? Mind you, again, I'm not speaking of this traditional Christian theological perspective or persuasion of divine individual salvation. I think that is where we enter the conversation. That is where we enter our relationship with God. But I also believe that our relationship with God evolves into something more social. This is why I can recall that we are to do justly and love mercy and walk humbly with God. This is why James would say that faith without works is dead. That we are not just thinking about our personal relationship with God, but that our personal relationship with God also has social implications. That we have a responsibility to the other in our relationship with God. That we are working with God to co-create a world, a unified world that is better for all of us to live in. And so here, what we're seeing is that we must adopt an awareness and an IQ of a social awareness, that we must hold social responsibility and accountability just as important as individual responsibility and accountability. That we must decenter ourselves from individualism, from rampant individualism, and think about how we can really create a world for those that live at the bottom of the well, for those that are down in the dumps, for those that are on the margins of life. And so it is important for us to understand that divine justice is just as social justice is divine. It is important for us to reorient ourselves to the knowledge and understanding that divine justice is social justice, and that we ought to develop a mindset within our preaching, within our teaching, within our conversation around social justice. I'm closing with this last thing, and that is to begin to center social justice, that as we begin to center social justice and divine justice in our churches and in our convention, let us remember the lessons of Luke 4. After Jesus was filled with the power of the Holy Spirit, he expressed it by declaring, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim release to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to let the oppressed go free, and to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor." I think it's very interesting to note that the first thing Jesus utters about the Spirit after being filled with power, he did not start shouting and he did not do a dance. But Jesus was committed. He expressed his commitment to the poor, to the captives, to the blind, and to the oppressed. And maybe we should set our expectations differently. That not only do we want to feel the Spirit, but we also want to have a knowledge of how the Spirit acts in the world. That the Spirit is not just a feeling that we feel every now and then, but the Spirit will teach us how to treat our neighbors right. The Spirit will lead us in strategies for social justice. The Spirit will lead us and guide us in how we ought to interact with one another. And so if we cannot have hope in anything else, we can have hope in the fact that Jesus is committed to those who have and continue to be on the margins of life. So let us be true followers of Jesus and uphold a commitment to the oppressed through our orientation towards a divine justice. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. I want to do one more thing as I take my seat. I want to inform you all of an organization that I am a part of. Currently, I am in Chicago. I've moved to Chicago, Illinois, and working with an organization called the Wayfarer Foundation. Wayfarer Foundation. And so Wayfarer Foundation is a Baha'i-inspired organization that funds and supports spiritually rooted and justice-oriented nonprofits. And it started in 2021, and with a mission to advance humankind spiritually toward a future peaceful and peaceful world civilization. And so I bring this up to you because I think it is important for us to realize the resources that are out there. Wayfarer is here supporting and giving back to BIPOC communities, Black and Indigenous and people of color. So Black, Indigenous, and people of color who have nonprofits, who are doing the work of justice, who are advancing justice, who are nurturing spirituality, embracing community, and cultivating resilience. This organization is now funding nonprofits with resources that they need to continue to do the work of justice. I think this is important as we talk about justice because the work of justice, it costs money. It costs money. Now, one thing I will also say is I'm not your plug to get any kind of money. I'm not. But what I can say is I am a resource to guide and help you through this process. As we look for more ways to support our convention, to support our local efforts, to support all the nonprofit and justice-oriented work that we may be a part of or that we may want to be a part of and engage. And so please keep in mind these different opportunities for us to really get involved in the work of social justice. Thank you, convention.
Let's give God's preacher another hand. Make no mistake about it, any message that is not pregnant with a consciousness of our social responsibility is an irrelevant message. We must be ever mindful that when we approach this sacred desk, that we ought to have our Bible in one hand and a newspaper in the other. And we ought to certainly speak to the needs of our community. Otherwise, our message is irrelevant. Amen. Bless you. Holy what? Holy rage. You ought to get mad. Don't cuss, but get mad. Get mad. My brothers and sisters, I thank God for this young man and all of those who are engaged in the work of social justice. We all have that responsibility. I'm going to say this, and we're going to move swiftly to the next service, and that is, my brothers and sisters, Jesus' message was one of social justice. I was hungry, and you fed me. Thirsty, you gave me drink. Naked, and you clothed me. I was in prison, and you came to see about me. And as much as we did it not for those in those situations, we've not done it unto God. At this time, we bless God, we thank God, and we're going to ask those who are in charge of the service. You're going to recess? We're going to recess, but don't recess too far. Take a break, and please come back. We have another great message, just as we've had this one, and we certainly would like to have your presence. I'm sure that the speaker of the hour would like to look out and see your face in the crowd. We stand in recess until 7:30. Till 7:30, yes. Now don't wait till 7:30 to go somewhere. Okay.